The word philosopher has its roots in the Greek words philin, meaning to love, and sophos, meaning wise. But what does it mean to be a philosopher? What does it mean for someone to study in the field of philosophy? To answer this question, we're going to look at the time periods between the 6th and 5th centuries BC, where the thinkers of this era were called pre-Socratic philosophers. Now, the philosophers of this era were known as what you would call materialists, and their prime focus was on how the physical universe operates. Thales of Miletus proposed that everything comes from water. Heraclitus believed that everything is in a constant state of change. No man ever steps in the same river twice. Contrast this to the 5th to 4th centuries BC, where we're introduced to Socrates. And during this point in civilization, thinkers weren't particularly interested in what we would call the study of ethics or morality. That is, until Socrates came along. And Socrates stands out from his predecessors in the way that his teachings of philosophy primarily focused on the study of ethics and of morality. Socrates was mainly focused on how to live a virtuous life. Not only that, but he introduced a new way of argumentation called a syllogism, or the Socratic method, which is essentially premise, conclusion. And it's really from this point on, after Socrates, where philosophy starts developing a new shape. It starts allowing for various different schools of thought to fall under the term of philosophy. And as we know, Socrates never wrote any of his teachings. Everything was written by his greatest disciple, which also happens to be the second most influential philosopher in history, Plato. And it's from Plato we're introduced to the school of thought of rationalism, or that everything that we know can be rationalized in one way or another. After Plato, we're introduced to his greatest disciple, Aristotle, who introduced the school of thought of empiricism, or that everything can be explained via our senses. And it's really these three that lay the foundation for what is essentially the rest of philosophy throughout history. That is, until we reach the 17th century, where we're introduced to Baruch Spinoza. And one of the things that Spinoza has gone down in history as having provided for philosophy is providing the transition from what was before called medieval philosophy to modern philosophy. And what this means is that medieval philosophy had its roots in the idea that everything came from God. And after Spinoza, modern philosophy allowed us to step away from the idea that any idea we give has to be accredited to God. It can be accredited to anything, say the universe. Now, of course, there were thinkers prior to Spinoza who were equally as influential post Socrates, and there was, of course, philosophers after Spinoza who were equally as influential. But the point being made here is that when we ask the question, what is philosophy? Philosophy is best understood as an umbrella term which provides multiple different fields of study. And the ones mentioned so far are just those, such as epistemology, or the study of knowledge, metaphysics, or the study of reality, ethics, or the study of what's right and wrong, etymology, or the study of words, logic, or the study of what makes an argument valid. But if it all had to be summed up in one sentence, it would be the following: philosophy comes into play when science cannot prevail. So when we ask questions such as, is it good or bad to want to maximize the well-being of all people, say in a certain country, how would we go about finding such an answer? We can use different types of metrics to try and show that a higher well-being equates to whatever positive metric that a country would want to look for. But what if I asked, okay, well, so what? What if I wanted to maximize the pain and suffering of all people in a country? Would this be a good or a bad thing? Now, in order to give an answer to this type of question, then you would have to understand the philosophy of ethics. And so the real purpose of philosophy is to give an account of the human experience.